Evelyn had just poured her son's tea, then the phone rang, and my pilot daughter called. Impossible. He's on my flight, not at home. When Evelyn hears those words, her quiet life shatters, because her son is asleep upstairs, or so she thought. Before we dive in, hit that like button, subscribe the channel and buckle up, because this story's about to hijack your mind. Rain pattered on the kitchen windows like 1,000 tiny drummers. The smell of chamomile rose from the porcelain teapot as Evelyn Mitchell, 76 and stubbornly self-sufficient, poured 2 cups the way she always did, one for herself, one for Thomas. Her rituals were a small rebellion against the chaos of the wider world. At her age, she had learned that predictability was armor. The farmhouse was quiet except for the low hiss of the radiator and the rhythmic ticking of the wall clock. Thomas had been upstairs for over an hour, resting. He was still pale from the hospital, his hair grayer than she remembered, but at least he was home. At least she could care for him again, like when he was a boy. She balanced the tray with practiced care and called up the stairs. Thomas? Tea's ready, darling. No answer. Probably asleep. His new medication had him nodding off at odd hours. She smiled faintly, imagining his mock grumpy face when she nudged him awake with the cup. The landline rang, a sharp, metallic trill that sliced through the stillness. Evelyn set the tray on the banister and reached for the receiver. Hello? Mom? The voice was soft but urgent, a whisper struggling through static. Evelyn straightened. Avery, sweetheart? Are you all right? You're flying, aren't you? Yes. In the background she heard a low murmur of passengers and the muted ding of an intercom. Mom, listen carefully. You said Thomas is home with you. Right now. Yes, Evelyn said slowly. She glanced at the staircase, at the closed door at the top. He's upstairs. Sleeping. Why? There was a pause, then Avery's voice dropped to a raw whisper. Mom, he's on my flight. Evelyn blinked. What? I'm looking at him. Seat 3C. He boarded in D.C. I thought maybe he hadn't told you he was traveling. But, Mom, it's him. Same jacket. Same face. He smiled at me when he walked in. The receiver felt suddenly heavy in Evelyn's hand. That's impossible. He's here. He's. Mom, please. Avery's voice trembled. It's him. Evelyn's eyes darted to the hall table where Thomas's car keys sat in their dish. His shoes were by the front door. He had been too weak to walk to the mailbox just this morning. I'll check, she said quickly, forcing calm into her voice. Don't talk to him. Stay in the cockpit. I'll call you back. Mom. But Evelyn had already set the receiver back in its cradle. The dial tone buzzed in her ear like an angry insect. The house felt different now, the shadows longer, the tick of the clock louder. She lifted the tray again, the cups rattled against their saucers. Thomas, she called as she climbed the stairs, her heart thudding. Thomas, answer me. The hallway smelled faintly of cedar and vapor rub. His door was ajar. She nudged it open with her elbow. The bedside lamp cast a soft amber glow over the room. His slippers were at the foot of the bed. His reading glasses sat atop yesterday's newspaper. The pill organizer was exactly where she'd left it, but the bed was empty. She set the tray down on the nightstand and moved quickly around the room. Armchair by the window, empty. Bathroom door open, empty. Closet shut, she yanked it open. Only hanging clothes and the smell of mothballs. Thomas, she called again, louder now. Her voice cracked. Nothing. Downstairs, the phone began to ring again, echoing up the stairwell like a warning. She turned to leave. Out of the corner of her eye she saw the teacup tremble slightly on its saucer, as if someone unseen had brushed past. Her heart lurched. The phone kept ringing. Evelyn half stumbled down the stairs, her slipper scraping wood, heart thudding like a fist in her chest. The sharp clang of the landline, once so familiar, now sounded alien. Urgent. Wrong. She snatched up the receiver. Avery? Still me, came her daughter's tight whisper. Did you check? Evelyn swallowed hard, eyes fixed on the front hallway. He's not here. You're sure? I looked everywhere. Her voice cracked despite herself. His room is empty. No signs of him leaving, his shoes are still by the door. A pause. Evelyn could hear the background noise of the airplane, a seatbelt announcement, distant murmurs. Avery lowered her voice even more. Okay. Mom, listen to me. I need you to take a photo of his room. The bed. Anything. I'm going to send you a photo of who I see sitting in 3C. Compare it. Evelyn nodded before realizing her daughter couldn't see her. All right. I'll do it now. She placed the receiver back in the cradle and turned in place, trying to make sense of the emptiness. The hallway mirror reflected only her own shaken face, wisps of silver hair fraying loose from her bun, mouth pressed into a thin line. She reached out and touched the keys still sitting in their dish. Cold. Undisturbed. Then she checked the garage. The overhead light flickered as it buzzed to life. Her husband's old workbench sat undisturbed in the corner, still covered in dust and tools untouched since his passing. The family SUV was parked exactly where it should be. Thomas hadn't taken it. A sudden memory cut through her like a paper slice. Thomas sitting at the kitchen table 2 nights ago, hunched over his phone, speaking in hushed tones. When she entered the room, he'd ended the call too quickly. Said it was nothing important. She had believed him. Why wouldn't she? Evelyn stepped back into the mudroom and checked the back door. Still locked. No muddy footprints, no dampness on the mat. She was losing her grip either on the situation or on reality. She opened the coat closet. His jacket hung right where she'd put it after folding laundry that morning, wallet in the left pocket. His medication bottle in the right. Untouched. Her hands trembled as she pulled out her phone. Avery's message buzzed through, one attachment, img_8934.jpg. Text, this is who's in 3C. Evelyn tapped the image. It was Thomas. Or, it looked like him. Gray hoodie, short hair, faint scar near the temple, just like her son. But there was something in the face. The shape of the mouth was tighter. The eyes colder. Not just tired, hollow. She snapped her own picture of his bed, the untouched slippers, and the tray of tea still steaming faintly in the lamplight. She sent it back without a word. Then she turned to the nightstand. Something was off. A hardcover book of World War II history had been slightly pulled out from the row. Evelyn slid it free, and something dropped out from between its pages. A laminated card. No, an ID badge. She held it up to the lamp. The name wasn't Thomas Mitchell. It read, James T. Wallace, Defense Intelligence Liaison. Access level, Red Alpha. Issued, today. Stamp, restricted flight access. Evelyn's knees gave out just a little, and she sank onto the edge of the bed. The room tilted. Thomas, or whoever he was, had boarded that plane using this. She looked again at the smiling man in Avery's photo. The same eyes, yes, but wearing something like a mask. The hair was neater. The posture straighter. Too perfect. Her hands went ice cold. Evelyn stood at the kitchen sink, staring blankly out the rain-streaked window, the ID badge still clutched in her hand. The name on it wasn't her son's, but the photo, it was him. Or some version of him. The phone rang again. Evelyn snatched it up before the second ring. Avery? I ran his name through the airline system, her daughter whispered. Her voice was more controlled now, the pilot in her taking over, but there was a blade of fear beneath it. The one on the ID badge. James Wallace. Mom, he's on the manifest. He boarded in D.C. But Thomas hasn't left this house in days. Evelyn's voice was taut. He's barely been walking. Whoever this is, Avery said, the airline cleared him with that badge. Military override access. TSA didn't blink. Evelyn's mind reeled. I don't understand. Avery's breath was shaky. Neither do I. But he asked for seat 3C, that wasn't his assigned spot. He said he had orders. And when he looked at me, it wasn't a casual look. It was like he knew me. Evelyn sat down heavily at the kitchen table. Something's wrong. Something I can't remember. Avery dropped to a whisper. Mom. You need to look around. His things. Anything that might explain this. And call me the second you find something. Please. Evelyn hung up and sat still for a moment, letting her eyes move across the kitchen. The old bookshelf near the pantry caught her attention, a place Thomas had lingered by earlier that week, pretending to browse but clearly hiding something. She got up and walked to it. Ran her hand along the spines of the cookbooks and nature guides, many long untouched. One of the volumes, a worn copy of Birds of the Northeast, tilted slightly forward. Evelyn pulled it out, revealing a shallow hollow behind. A cell phone sat inside. Black. Sleek. Not Thomas's old clunky model. It was off. No passcode screen, no branding. She plugged it into the wall charger and waited. The screen flickered on. Just one thing, a wallpaper photo. A live feed. From a surveillance camera. Her own backyard. Taken from above. Evelyn staggered back a step. The timestamp in the corner read, 5:41 p.m. Today. Barely an hour ago. She hadn't seen any drones. She hadn't heard a sound. And yet there it was, her garden, her shed, her umbrella on the patio gently blowing in the wind. The phone vibrated in her hand. A message flashed across the screen, access confirmed. Stand by for upload. Then another message immediately after, asset retrieved. Secondary target, Evelyn Mitchell. Her heart skipped. She gripped the counter to steady herself. Secondary target. Her. What the hell had Thomas gotten involved in? And more terrifying, was he involved, or created? The phone buzzed again. A final message, echo protocol pending. If compromise detected, initiate sleep lock. SLEP lock. She had no idea what it meant, but her gut told her it wasn't good. Avery's voice rang again in her mind, look through his things. Anything that might explain this. Evelyn grabbed a flashlight and returned to Thomas's room. She yanked open drawers, flipped through notebooks, shook out folders. Most of it was normal, crossword puzzles, medical records, spare change, until she opened the bottom drawer. There, nestled beneath a stack of t-shirts, was a single laminated file folder. No label. Just a red triangle stamped in the corner. Inside. A map with flight paths. 3 driver's licenses, all with Thomas's face, all different names. A photograph of Avery walking through the airport, dated yesterday. And at the very bottom, a small note. Written in blocky handwriting she didn't recognize, watch the skies. They're not who you remember. The message still glowed on the burner phone screen, if you stay where you are, she won't land alive. Evelyn sat frozen on the edge of her son's, or the imposter's, bed, the phone heavy in her hand. She'd read the words 10 times, hoping they'd change. Hoping they were some sick prank. They didn't. Avery was in danger. She stared at the coordinates below the message. They pointed to a remote airstrip in western Pennsylvania. Not a commercial airport, a private one, decommissioned. Why would someone be diverting her daughter's plane there? She closed the file folder and stood slowly, joints stiff, every motion deliberate. The storm outside had calmed, but inside her chest the pressure had only grown. Something deeper was going on. Something old. The phone's wallpaper, her house from above, reminded her that she wasn't just being threatened. She was being watched. She turned on the bedroom lamp, took a deep breath, and stepped into the hallway. The far end held a built-in bookshelf, untouched in years. Her late husband, Edward, had used it as a hiding place once, back when they were much younger, and the Cold War had everyone twitchy. He'd told her, half joking, that there were things you're safer not remembering. Now those words crawled back with new weight. She ran her hand along the bottom row. One book, a dusty hardback copy of the Federalist Papers, was wedged in tighter than the others. She pulled it out. Behind it, a gap in the backboard. Hollow. Evelyn slid her fingers inside and pulled out a large envelope. No label, just thick, yellowing paper and a faint smell of mildew and tobacco. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The first thing inside, a passport. She flipped it open. Her photo. Younger by 30, maybe 40 years. But undeniably her. Except the name read, Margot Ellis. Eyes wide, Evelyn staggered back a step. Beneath the passport, more documents, a certificate of clearance from the Department of Defense, dated 1974. A name change authorization. A photo ID badge from a government lab she had never heard of, Ecosystems Research Division. None of it made sense, and yet all of it felt horribly familiar, like the echo of a dream that won't stay buried. She dropped into the old rocking chair beside the hallway window, staring down at the items in her lap. She'd never been Margot. Had she? But, a memory flashed. Not clear. Just a scent. A cold metal table. Fluorescent lights. Men in suits. A clipboard. A voice, you'll be helping your country. When you wake up, you'll have a better life. No faces. No context. But the words chilled her. She stood up and pulled the rest of the envelope's contents free. The final photo made her legs nearly give out. It was her, standing on a runway next to Edward. He wore a uniform she didn't recognize. Her hair was short, her posture stiff. Behind them, a private jet. The back was stamped, Echo Flight 7, November 1985. And written in pen at the top corner of the photo, asset secured. Memory lock confirmed. Memory lock. The phrase sent a jolt down her spine. Had someone erased pieces of her past? Was Evelyn just a story she'd been told? The burner phone buzzed again. This time, a photo. A grainy surveillance still. Of her. From 10 years ago. In a grocery store parking lot. Smiling, waving to a neighbor. A file name at the top, Margot Ellis, Level 4, dormant. Potential reactivation approved. The photo slipped from Evelyn's hand and fluttered to the floor like a dying leaf. She stared at the pile of documents, the fake passport, no, the real passport. And the name Margot Ellis burned in her memory like a hot brand. The silence in the house had turned into a roar. Every creak in the walls, every faint tick of the clock felt like it echoed from somewhere deeper. Not just in the house, inside her. She went back to the kitchen on unsteady feet, clutching the documents to her chest. She needed light, space, air. The back door rattled faintly in its frame from the wind. She looked out the window. No cars on the road. No neighbors. Just the old pine tree swaying in the dark. She turned on the kettle out of instinct. Because what else did one do when confronted with proof that their entire identity might have been a fabrication? The whistle never came. Before it could, Evelyn was pulled backward through time, not in a dream, not a memory, but something else. Flashback, 1985, Evelyn as Margot. She was in a van. The windows were blacked out. Her hands were folded in her lap, calm but rehearsed. Across from her sat a man in a dark blue uniform, his face obscured by shadows. "You understand why this is necessary, Mrs. Ellis," he said. Her voice came from somewhere outside her body. "I agreed to the terms. My husband did too. You'll be given a new name. A new town. Everything will be prepared." "And the boy?" The man didn't blink. "He'll be safer this way. One copy for your family. One for us." She stiffened. "Copy?" The man's lips curved slightly. "There are layers to protection, Margot. The boy you raise will be yours in every way that matters. That was when it started to unravel. She had agreed to protect her family. Or so they told her. But the truth was already a flicker behind her eyes. A copy? What did that mean? Evelyn gasped and gripped the kitchen counter as the memory vanished. Not a dream. A recovered file from a locked archive in her mind. What had she done? Had she agreed to raise a child, one that wasn't really hers? Or one that was hers, twice? Her knees gave out. She sat hard in the nearest chair, the burner phone still beside her. The words from the last message returned with cruel clarity. Asset retrieved. Secondary target, Evelyn Mitchell. Or was it Margot? Which one of her had been targeted? Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a call. From Avery. Evelyn answered, her voice hoarse. I'm here. Avery's voice was steady, but cold. I confronted him. Seat 3C. I asked him what hospital he was recovering from. Evelyn held her breath. He smiled and said, your mother kept more secrets than I ever did. A cold sensation slid down Evelyn's spine. That's not something Thomas would ever say. I know. A pause. I took a photo. I'm sending it now. Seconds later, the image appeared on the burner phone. It was her son. Or no, a man with Thomas's face. The same forehead crease, the same eyes. But there was a precision to his posture, a coldness in his half-smile. His hair was just a little too perfect. Evelyn zoomed in instinctively. No scar on the collarbone. When Thomas was 6, he'd fallen from the apple tree in their backyard. Hit a fence post and needed 15 stitches. That scar had never faded. She looked again. Smooth skin. Clean collar. No scar. That man wasn't Thomas. He was something else. She stood slowly. She needed answers. Real ones. Not flashbacks. Not fragments. The hallway mirror caught her reflection again, the same face she'd seen her whole life. But now, she saw it through another lens. The high cheekbones. The posture. The rigid calm. Margot Ellis had never left. Evelyn had just forgotten her. She picked up the photo from the floor and flipped it over. Written in faint pencil were the words, if reactivated, proceed to Vault Echo 9, Kansas. She didn't know what Vault Echo 9 was. But the name Echo, it was the same as on the documents. The same word from the burner phone. The same name from her long-buried memory. Echo wasn't just a code. It was a program. Avery's voice came again. Mom, what's going on? Evelyn stared out at the storm-dark sky. Sweetheart, she said slowly, I think I used to be someone else. And I think your brother might not be your brother at all. As she spoke the words, the porch light outside flickered. A shadow moved past the window. Someone was already outside. Evelyn crouched beside the front window, careful not to cast a shadow across the drawn curtains. The shadow outside had vanished, but her nerves buzzed like live wires. The documents, the alias, the photo of her as Margot, the message threatening Avery, it all pulsed in her head. But nothing chilled her more than the image Avery had sent just moments earlier, Thomas's face. But not Thomas's soul. She clutched the phone tightly and stared at the photo again. She'd studied that face her whole life. She'd memorized it the way a mother does, every freckle, every aging line, every memory that etched into the corners of his eyes. But this man had no warmth. No softness. He was too perfect. His shirt was crisply pressed. His hair too dark, his skin too smooth, details that didn't match the real Thomas's weathered hands and sun-marked cheeks. You're not my son, Evelyn whispered. The burner phone buzzed. File received, Mitchell_template_final.pdf. She opened it. The header read, Subject, TM Series, Last Viable Clone. Status, Field Active. Override protocol in place. She skimmed diagrams and jargon until her breath caught at a section labeled Parental Integration Test. It held a recording of her own voice from decades ago, a memory she didn't recall. He's just like Edward. Same hands. Same ears. Sometimes I forget, what came first? Bile rose in her throat. How long had she lived beside copies? Her phone lit again. Avery's voice came sharp, low. I've looked closer. He's not scarred. What scar? The apple tree, when we were kids. He split his collar open on the fence. Evelyn remembered. The blood. The stitches. He doesn't have it, Avery whispered. Silence fell. That one missing scar told them everything. Mom, Avery said, voice breaking. What if I've never really known him? Neither have I. A pause, then Avery again. He looked at me like he was assessing me. Not recognizing me. Don't confront him, Evelyn said. Stay in the cockpit. Do not engage. I won't. But it feels like the flight itself is part of whatever this is. Evelyn dragged the old photo albums from the closet. Page after page of birthdays, vacations, holidays. Details shifted like a cruel trick. At 5, Thomas had a gap in his teeth. By 6, they were perfect. No braces. No dental visits. A birthmark on his temple vanished between 2 photos. She slammed the book shut. Even the past had been rewritten. The phone buzzed again. Sleep lock protocol will initiate in 180 minutes. Location lock active. Beneath it, her name, Ellis, Margot, clearance expired. Her skin went cold. Sleep lock. A word she didn't know, but her bones understood. Shut down, erasure. Not someone else. Her. Wind rattled the back door. Evelyn moved quickly, half her age again. She didn't reach for a coat or locks. She knew where she had to go. The basement. Dust and silence greeted her as she pulled the hidden latch behind the paint cans. A wall panel slid open. Inside sat a steel cabinet marked, property of Ecosys, vault access only. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside. 3 binders, Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase Recall. Edward's leather notebook. A U.S. map with airports pinned in red. A Polaroid of Thomas in a playground. And another Polaroid, same place, same boy, but not identical. Her chest tightened. She flipped open Edward's journal. They told me he was safe. But there were 3. The first failed. The second was taken. The third, the one we raised, was stable. Until now. If Echo reaches phase recall, don't let them take the real Thomas. Her breath rushed out. They hadn't only altered her son. They had altered her memories. She pried open the floorboard Edward had marked. Inside lay a pouch, a flash drive labeled Echo, Truth, and an envelope. Inside the envelope, another Polaroid. 3 identical boys, with names written beneath. Alpha. Control. Wild. The light flickered above her like a dying star. Evelyn froze. Was that the house settling upstairs? Or someone moving? She forced her trembling hands to open the pouch. Inside, a recorder with a note in Edward's handwriting, for Evelyn. If you ever wake up. She pressed play. His voice crackled, steady but worn. If you're hearing this, it means the memory lock failed. You were part of Project Echo. They used you. Phase 1 was imprinting. Phase 2 was biological. Evelyn gripped the bench. They cloned your DNA first. Then mine. Then the boys. 3 were made. Alpha. Control. Wild. Alpha failed. Control we raised. Wild was taken by the initiative. Her heart pounded. I tried to stop it. They wiped your memory when I refused. Echo never shut down. It evolved into aviation systems, IDs, biometrics. The clones aren't just spies anymore. They're backups. For collapse. The boy she raised, the man she called Thomas, was Control. Programmed. One of the others was on Avery's plane. But where was the real Thomas? She shoved the flash drive into Edward's old laptop. Files filled the screen: surveillance feeds, autopilot schematics, medical logs. One document stopped her cold. Subject: Mitchell, Avery, Flight 239. Objective: upload behavioral library to Asset 3C. Trigger phase recall at altitude. A warning blinked: upload at 37,000 feet, 84% complete. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number: do not interfere, Margot. She will survive if you stay still. Her hands flew to the keyboard. She typed fast to Avery: that man is not your brother. Your plane is the node. Get out of the sky. No reply. Instead, the laptop feed shifted. A live view of Avery's cockpit. The man with Thomas's face stood outside the door, calm, waiting. Avery looked at the camera. Their eyes met through the feed. Her daughter mouthed the words, "I know." Then the feed went black. A whir shook the kitchen windows. Evelyn rushed upstairs. A drone the size of a motorcycle landed in her yard, its hatch blinking, package retrieval in progress. She pulled on a raincoat and stepped out. The hatch slid open, revealing a reinforced glass pod. Inside, a man in scrubs, oxygen mask on his face. Thomas. Not the replica. Not the programmed shadow. The boy she'd kissed goodnight, the teenager who cried for their dog, the man who hugged her too long after Edward's funeral. Her knees buckled. She touched the glass. Thomas. The drone's panel chimed: gene match confirmed, subject control, stable, but Edward's journal had said otherwise. This wasn't the one she raised. This was the one they took. A memory slammed into her: metal room. Boys no older than 6. One smiled, one blinked. We'll transfer the control unit to your home. Wild goes to the field. Alpha, we monitor. You'll remember only one. And then, darkness. She fell to her knees, sobbing. They had stolen her real child, replaced him with a clone, and erased her memory so thoroughly she loved the copy as her own. The pod hissed open. Sterile air hit her face. She dragged his body inside, laid him on the couch, strapped an oxygen tank over his mouth. Slowly, his chest rose. His eyelids flickered. Mom? Her sobs broke free. Yes, baby. I'm here. They kept me sedated, he rasped. Said I was dangerous. You weren't. You were the truth they couldn't control. His hand trembled as he pulled a metal plate from his pocket, coordinates etched deep. Blackridge Airstrip. The same one on Edward's map. The clock read 3:12 a.m. intercept scheduled for 4 o'clock. Thomas's eyes blazed. If the upload fails, he'll crash it. The flip phone rang. Evelyn answered. Avery? Her daughter's voice was strained. Mom. I've lost control. Autopilot won't disengage. ATC can't see us. It's not a man, Evelyn whispered. It's a program in skin. Silence. Then Avery said, Boy, steady now, copy that. She had shifted into pilot mode, professional and cold. I'll divert to Blackridge. Fake a hydraulic failure. But Mom, he's waiting. Watching the cockpit door. Evelyn's chest tightened. If you land before the upload completes? Thomas answered hoarsely from the couch, he'll destroy the plane. Avery's breath trembled. Then I can't land slow. I need to kill the signal before touchdown. You'll crash, Evelyn whispered. If I don't, he finishes the job. The line crackled. Evelyn pressed hard against the window, staring into the dark. What do you need me to do? She asked. Get to Blackridge. Cut their node station. Anything transmitting. Kill the field. I don't even know what I'm looking for. You'll figure it out, Avery said. Her voice softened. I need you to survive this. So I can survive this. The line went dead. Outside, the wind fell silent. Rain stilled. Then, headlights carved the drive. Evelyn spotted the headlights cresting the hill, 3 sets moving with deliberate purpose. She snapped off the lamp and crouched low. "Thomas," she whispered. "They're here." Her brother struggled upright, still pale from recovery. "How long until Avery lands?" 30 minutes. "They'll take me before that." "Not if I can help it." She crossed the room with steady resolve, lifted the loose floorboard Edward had built, and pulled out what he had left for a day she had prayed would never come, a flare, a hammer, and a remote marked Echo failsafe. "Thomas rasped," he said, pressing, "that kills everything we were part of." Evelyn pocketed it. Outside, SUVs rolled in and blocked the driveway. Doors opened. Men in black moved across the gravel, silent and faceless. She bolted through the house, locking shutters, barring doors, flipping the hidden pantry switch that cut every signal in a mile radius. Phones went dead. "That buys us minutes," she said. Thomas's voice shook. "We need the tunnel." Through the cellar lay Edward's Cold War escape route. She shoved a lantern into his hands. "Left branch, quarter-mile south." "Go." "And you?" Evelyn didn't answer. Upstairs, the first intruder swept a rifle light across the kitchen. Evelyn lit the flare. Flum. The burst of fire blinded him. She swung the poker into his shoulder. He dropped. More boots thundered overhead. She sprinted to the garage, splashing paint thinner across the floor. A voice called through the door, cold and familiar. "Margot. Come quietly and we'll let the pilot live." She pressed the fail-safe. The house went black. Their comms shrieked with static. For the first time in years, she felt like herself again. "You stole our control unit," the voice hissed. "Now we'll take your daughter instead." Evelyn slipped into the storm, vanishing into the woods. Beneath a log, Edward's old ammo crate waited, a flare gun and a metal box marked Echo detonator, manual override. She fired the flare skyward. Red light bled through the clouds. "Don't land." 35,000 feet above, Avery saw the signal. Her breath caught. In row 3C, the strange man stood again, eyes closed, listening. "Control, diverting to emergency strip," she said. Silence answered. "Jammed." A scream tore through the cabin. She turned. Row 3C was empty. The exit latch hung loose, yet no wind, no decompression. He hadn't escaped. He had vanished. Her phone buzzed once, a message from her mother. "Target gone. Land. Shut it down." Avery forced the plane's path toward the fire road her father had once claimed could hold a jet. On the ridge, Evelyn twisted the detonator key. A deep hum rolled beneath the earth. Echo's buried systems began to die. Thomas staggered up beside her. "You stopped it?" "She's coming down now." The roar of engines split the night. Avery's plane burst through fog, skimming treetops, descent impossibly steep. "She won't make the strip," Thomas muttered. "No," Evelyn said. "She's aiming for the road." The plane slammed down, skidded in a storm of gravel and fire, then settled. Avery stumbled out, bloodied but alive. She smiled. "Nice road." Evelyn wrapped her arms around her daughter, whispering, "I'm sorry. For all of it. You saved me." Avery held tight. Thomas stepped forward. "You never met me before today. Not the real me." "I know," Avery said softly. "But I always felt you were out there." Their embrace was cautious but real. For the first time in decades, Evelyn had her family. It lasted only a moment. From the tree-line, a blonde woman emerged, calm and deliberate. She raised a device and clicked. The plane erupted in a silent, controlled explosion. Avery reeled in horror. "You erased our uplink," the woman said evenly. "But the code still exists. Echo isn't over. You're just another chapter." Evelyn squared herself. "You lost." The woman shook her head. No. I adapted. She melted back into the woods. Moments later, Evelyn's phone buzzed. A digitized voice whispered, "Hello again, Margot. Welcome back." Morning stretched long shadows across the scarred farmhouse. Shutters broken, siding scorched, but inside, silence. Avery slept. Thomas too. Evelyn sat on the porch with tea and a wooden box on her lap. The name Margot was carved into the lid. Inside lay a faded photo of her in uniform, a locket, a badge from a division that never existed, and Edward's note, "If you're reading this, they didn't win. Protect the truth. Don't give them the last word. Love, Edward." Her hands trembled with clarity. She remembered Berlin, 1985. Rain on the rooftop. The charge is set. Echo servers burning, the mission unfinished. The life she buried when she became Evelyn. The porch creaked. Thomas stepped out. "You're not just Evelyn anymore, are you?" She smiled faintly. "I think I'm both. Evelyn was my second chance. Margot was my first fire." Avery appeared with coffee. "What happens now?" "We bury the servers. Burn the rest." Evelyn slipped an envelope into the mailbox, old passport, Echo badge, a flash drive labeled failover route, and a letter, "If you're watching." Whoever found it, friend or foe, the message was clear, "I remember now. And I'm not afraid." She returned to the porch, sitting between her children. Whatever Echo still is, they'll come. Avery's eyes hardened. "Let them." Thomas smiled. "We've got Mom now." Evelyn chuckled. "They should be terrified." Across the street, a gray sedan idled. Inside, a man with Edward's buried watch watched the house. On his dashboard blinked a file, Echo_reboot_01.